And it's September 21st, and we're interviewing Captain Doug here on the Native. And could you tell me how you started in this job? And I know it's been, you said 24 years you've been doing?
1989 we started.
Okay.
And we actually started this only because we were pleasure boaters. My wife and I were in the, at that time, in the jewelry and giftware business, and with my brother and his wife in Langley. And my brother wanted to retire, and anyway, we did a fair bit of boating, but never in the river. Mm-hmm. And one day we thought, well, let's take a look up the river and see what happened. Beautiful day. We went all the way up to Fort Langley, and no place to. There wasn't a dock there, but we tied up and clambered up the bank. There was actually a hotel there then. Which there hasn't been since then. And walked around Fort Langley. We actually, even though we lived in Langley, we hadn't spent a lot of time in Fort Langley, but we fell in love with Fort Langley. And so we thought, on the way back, I said to my wife, you know, this is just remarkable up here in the river. It's too bad we can't show that to other people.
Right.
And of course, that was a germ of an idea. That would have been probably in 1985 or 6 or something. So when it came time that we knew we were going to get out of the business we were in, I started thinking more about that, looking around at maybe where we could get boats. And eventually it got so serious that we found a boat. It was a 40-passenger kind of a cruiser type boat, and up on the Sunshine Coast. And we sold our house, sold basically everything we had.
Oh wow!
And we put together the business plan, and had some other people invest with us, and that was the start of the business. So it wasn't as if I had wanted all my life to be in the marine business. That wasn't the case at all.
Right. So it came upon you. Would you say that it was just the experience of the river that?
That's exactly right. It was the combination of it being a beautiful day, the experience of the river, Fort Langley was a big part of it. And when we started the business, when we actually got going, May of 1989, we had a group from Langley, down at Fort Langley. We had the boat still in New Westminster, and we hadn't even finished putting everything together, and they were waiting up there for us to go out on a cruise. And we were down in New Westminster at the shipyard getting some stuff put in the boat, and we had to leave really early in the morning to get up there. And as we were on our way up there, I had a carpenter on board, and he was installing the seats. And when we got up there, we were about 10 minutes away from being fully ready. And so, you know, talk about last minute planning. And we had a group of 40 people, did a 3-hour cruise with them. But Fort Langley was our home base then.
All right.
We thought that we could get enough people coming to Fort Langley that we could make the trip Fort Langley to New Westminster and return. And we called it a trip through history, and we did a lot of marketing for it. We discovered that we would lots of times come from Fort Langley to New Westminster empty, and then go back from New Westminster to Fort Langley full. So it told us right away that wrong home port.
Right.
New Westminster needs to be the home port. And within a year, we knew that we needed a different boat. We needed a bigger boat, and we needed to be able to serve full meals on it, which we couldn't do on that. It was kind of a snack idea.
Right.
And we needed something that we could license, and that's when we started looking for a paddle wheeler.
Okay.
That we knew a paddle wheeler was going to be the ideal, and that was only because we delved into the history, talked about the history a lot, learned about all the paddle wheelers that were on the river at one time. So that's what we looked for.
Okay.
It took us over a year to find the Native, and we got information. The only place we could get information on paddle wheelers was from the U.S. And I think we had 15 or so boats shown to us on emails and sent by mail.
Right.
None of them were authentic paddle wheelers. They all had dummy wheels and propellers.
Okay.
And then I subscribed to the, what do we call it then? Western Mariner, it's called now, but to the Marine magazine. And there was this boat for sale in there, and it was an authentic paddle wheeler owned by a tugboat man. This was in 1980. Let me think, 1991. And I thought, my gosh, an authentic paddle wheeler, and it's right here. It was on the river down by the airport. And we went and saw the man who owned it. We phoned him and went down and saw him. Very nice fellow. Owned a tugboat company. He had the boat built, and he and his wife lived on it.
Oh, wow.
So we made a deal with him. We bought it, and he carried the mortgage on it and worked with us to make sure everything got ready. It took us 8 months, I think it was, to turn it into a passenger boat.
Sure.
Because we had the Coast Guard looking over our shoulder all the time. It was a big job, way bigger than we thought it was.
Oh, you're kidding.
We estimated it would cost something like $150,000, something like that. It turned out to be almost $300,000 by the time the end came. So that involves getting some finance.
Sure, right.
But anyway, it got done, and this boat has done this terrific job for us ever since. And it really has been an excellent boat. It's still got the original machinery, and always been a paddle wheeler. And when a tugboat man builds a boat, it's a solid boat. So that's.
And it's from here, you said it. It's from down by the airport.
Built in a shipyard down close to the airport, and he lived on it in a little marina down close to the airport.
And do you like that about it, that it's sort of born here and from here?
Very much. When we learned that it was called the Native, we said, asked him why he called it the Native, and he said it has nothing to do necessarily with Native people, but it was built in British Columbia, and it was built all of British Columbia products, including the steel.
Oh, wow.
So native to British Columbia.
Oh, that's cool. So it's really of British Columbia then, in many ways.
Very much a local boat.
Right.
And it was a pretty well-known boat even when he had it, but since then give you an idea, when we bought it, the engines had 200 hours on them, and now they've got 18,000.
Oh, wow.
So.
Holy Dinah.
So it's done a lot of work.
Yeah.
And it's done it very well.
And how did you go about your training to be a captain? How long did that take, and what was the process there?
Well, I started it. I had to hire captains, of course, at the beginning, and from then I started doing the studies, but I had to get a year of sea time, which I did on the first boat.
Right.
That being a smaller boat, I was able to get a captain's ticket for what they call a captain or a master of a small passenger vessel. So I got that. It was just a little bit over a year after we bought the 40-passenger boat. That was a lot of work. I worked as kind of a first mate on the boat, and I studied a lot because I didn't know really that much about the marine operations. Took the necessary courses and then took the exam, had that certificate. Then when we bought this boat, I had to start all over again.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's bigger and it needed an upgraded and quite a bit more, so more courses. So I think it only took maybe a year and a half. I had to put in a year on this boat in the capacity of first mate, and then I got the master ticket. Now I have a master ticket that qualifies me for any boat over 60 tons. So it's that covers pretty much anything.
Okay.
So it's been a lot of work, but it was a labor of love, and I'm way past retirement age, but I'm still doing this because it's our business and we like it and get to meet lots of wonderful people.
Absolutely. And were there bits about being a captain that you found that you picked up after you finished your courses and things like that weren't things that you learned in the book studying? And
I learned more by working in the river, and in particular talking and listening to and following the towboaters, towing barges and log booms and that sort of thing. I learned the river over the years, basically inside out. Now people ask me about the river.
Right. No problem.
Yes?
Do you want lunch or do you want to have dinner after?
Yeah, dinner after is fine, thanks.
Okay.
So was there a lot of learning from the other captains that worked on the tugs and the trawlers and things like that? Was there much communication between all you guys?
Not that much. All. I'm going to listen to this.
Oh, no worries. Yeah.
Talking to me. The fish boats is kind of a different matter. Not all that. They're busy when they're out. They're really busy, and they're not as communicative as the towboats are. One of the big changes that we've seen in the time we've been on the river is the fishing industry. It's gone from a time where we could barely get up to Fort Langley because we had to go around all the nets, and the nets were stretched almost from one side of the river to the other.
Right.
In fact, there were times when normally when we're going to Fort Langley, we don't go around the upper part of Douglas Island, which is where we're heading for right now. But we had to do that in order to get around the fish boats.
Oh, okay.
When fishing was opening, there was a tremendous amount of boats in it. I remember one of the big runs. We talked to the fisheries department when we got to Fort Langley because they were tied up having lunch there. And I said, "My gosh, how many fishing boats are there in the river?" It was a big opening. It was sockeye.
Wow.
And they figured there was at least 2,000 boats from the mouth of the river up to Hope.
Oh my goodness.
So not many salmon got by them.
I bet, yeah.
So and that made it very difficult for the towboaters in particular,
right.
Because. But anyway, that was part of life on the river at that time.
Right.
And so we don't see the fishermen out. We haven't seen. This year we have not seen one commercial opening. The only openings that have been on have been native openings, and they're very limited. They do it sometimes by area. One of the bands will get a couple of days, and so we'll see half a dozen or a dozen boats in the river.
Oh, wow.
So the fishing really hasn't come back, and whether it ever will or not is hard to say.
And are there other major changes that you've seen since you started?
One of the other very big changes that we see is in the wood business, in the forestry business. We think there's lots of log booms in the river right now, but absolutely nothing in comparison within our early days.
Oh, wow.
You couldn't find a tie-up place that wasn't loaded with logs at one time. And that's because the mills were working here, and we were making wood products in our country or in the United States, where we'd send the milled lumber to. Now, if you heard we're talking about Fraser Mills being one of the biggest lumber mill, sawmill in the British Empire. And it's not even there anymore, and very, very few of the small ones are around anymore.
Right.
And unfortunately, it's been very sad for us to watch this. We see them taking long tows of logs down to where the deep sea ships come in and load all the raw logs on there, and away they go. They go offshore, and they come back as furniture that we buy from Walmart, and it's too bad. Put a lot of people out of work. So that's one of the big changes that we've seen.
Right. And how about the work going on down at where you're sort of more down at the waterfront, that area in the New West area? Have you noticed a decrease in the actual work going on right on the river there, or?
We not really, because we're so close to Fraser Surrey docks.
Oh yeah.
That has changed. That's probably 3 times bigger than it once was.
Wow.
When we started, in fact, right up to 2000 and I think it was 2010. It was called Surrey Fraser Docks, and it was a separate entity. Now it's called Metro Vancouver, Port Metro Vancouver.
Right.
It's all Vancouver, the North Arm and the main arm are all one port.
The Port
facility.
Authority, yeah.
And now that makes us the biggest port in Canada, one of the biggest in North America. And now we're seeing way more deep sea ships coming in. But as far as upriver from there, if anything, there's less activity by quite a bit than what there used to be. We don't see as many tugboats. One of the things, one of the industries that's taken over a lot from hauling logs is hauling gravel.
Oh.
There's some huge gravel quarries, gravel mines, both up in the Pitt Lake area, Pitt River, not Pitt Lake, but Pitt River. So there's a lot of barges loaded with gravel coming down, and also up in the Sumas Mountain area of Abbotsford, big gravel quarries there. It was a few years ago. I spoke to one of the log towers that was bringing two barge load of gravel down. He said they were kind of celebrating on that trip because it was the 10,000th barge load out of Sumas.
Oh my goodness!
And that was several years ago. So it tells you. And the barges eliminate. Well, it's similar to the log business. A barge load of gravel eliminates about 70 truckloads. So it takes a lot of traffic off of the highways by bringing them down by barge. So that has become an industry that wasn't on the river when we started.
Right.
Other than that, it's not that busy. We've seen an increase in recreational traffic, but not so much on the Fraser River. But on the Fraser, going to go somewhere else, like up to Pitt Lake. Pitt Lake is a very popular area to go to for recreation. And Harrison is another lake that is. Just speaking of Harrison, just kind of a note of interest. In 2009, I think it was 2009, there was a celebration of rivers, and I think it was a 150-year celebration. And they asked us if we would bring our paddle wheeler up into Harrison Lake and up into Little Douglas Lake, they call it, which is like Little Harrison Lake, right at the far end of Harrison Lake, because there had not. That's where they used to bring the steam-driven paddle wheelers to take the gold miners up. They'd walk from there, from this little village they had there, all the way up to the gold fields up in the northern part of BC. So, but there had not been a paddle wheeler up to this little lake since the 1920s.
Oh, wow.
And they asked us if we would do that. And so we said, well, we'll try. We've never been up there. So we did, and it was a big thing to put together. They did all the marketing for it. And what we did was we took passengers New Westminster to Mission, and they overnighted there, and we arranged hotel. And left early the next morning. We had to have a pilot on board to get us up Harrison River, and then landed at Harrison Hot Springs area.
Okay.
They stayed overnight there, and then the next day loaded up again with passengers. And these were all different segments. We'd had different people for each segment. And then it was our day to go up into this little Harrison Lake. Well, that was quite an adventure.
Right.
So
what did the river pilot do in order to, like, what would he do
well,
that was different from what you do?
He owns a towing company, and he tows logs and barges on Harrison River. Harrison River is very different.
Okay.
Like the Fraser River, you really can't see where the shallow spots are, where the rocks are. You're more likely to run into rocks and shoals than we are anywhere we go in the Fraser. And he knows where it all is. So,
so someone who knows the particular
and a very
river.
hard-running river.
Wow.
What we had to do was pick a date, which we did along with them before they started marketing it, where we knew we had enough water in the river, but it was close to the end of freshet, so that we didn't have as strong a current to push to get up there.
Okay.
So basically, we had to pick a date within a week.
Oh, wow.
That's about the time frame
where you
we
were going to be able to get up.
And that was very hard work for this boat to get up there, because it's a tough river to maneuver. Once we got in the lake, then the lake is huge.
Yeah.
It took us a lot longer to get from at the Harrison Hot Springs area up to the far end of the lake. It's something like 35 miles or something.
Oh, wow.
And we usually don't go that kind of distance.
Sure.
We left early in the morning, and then we were still late, getting there later than we thought. But we actually got into this little tributary that goes into this little Harrison Lake or Douglas Lake, and quite amazing because it's usually filled with logs just from the wind blowing up there, logs and debris. But we got right in and managed to actually tie up to where the old steamboats used to tie up. And it was a very rickety spot. We couldn't let the passengers off, but some of our crew got off and then stood on this, what was left of this little dock. Lots of photography going on. The native folks met us there and did dancing and music.
Oh,
and
neat.
And,
so is that stressful getting through that trip for you as the captain?
Yeah, especially when it's unfamiliar.
Right.
And timing. They were depending on us being in certain spots by certain times, and some of it we didn't make on time.
Right.
So and nothing I can do about that. You know, we go as fast as we can go.
Yeah.
But it went very well, and
Good.
it became quite. It's going to go down in history because, as I say, we were the last one since the 1920s, the first one since the 1920s, and lots of pictures, lots of stuff in the museums and things. We went. We did it again for 2 years after that, and then the demand kind of dwindled off, and we had to do this in August, which is one of our busiest months down here. So we don't go up there anymore. And whether we will or not is hard to say.
And you mentioned lots of tourists come in from. Are they international tourists? And like, what's the demographic of your passengers usually?
Since 2011, since 9/11, the tourist business has really gone down. We used to have a lot of U.S. tourists come up here.
Right.
And the U.S. tourism just died completely. People wouldn't travel; they didn't want to fly, and they were fearful of traveling. And then after that, fuel prices went very high, especially in Canada, and we're still working very hard to try to get even a small percentage of the tourism companies that we used to work with from the U.S. to try to get them back. We're getting some of them. In fact, we've got one of them on Monday.
Oh, okay.
But it's been very difficult. One of the other things is that it had become difficult over the last few years to get people to come to New Westminster, partly because when the casino boat moved in, we lost a lot of our walk-on traffic. We had to change location, and people. We used to get lots of families, and lots of people would come to New Westminster just to walk the boardwalk and go to the market. When the casino boat came, a lot of the businesses actually lost business and closed up. The market was extremely busy for the first few years that we were in business, probably the first 10 years. It was really a busy place. Well, as you probably know what happened, finally the market closed up, and the casino boat closed up, and they built a big casino on land in Queensboro. And when all of this happened, our walk-on traffic just absolutely died. We used to get probably 60% of our business from walk-ons, and even now, if we get 10%, it's good. That means it's come up. 2.5 years it took with the closed market there, so there wasn't the facilities there that attracted tourists, attracted people, and we had to change our marketing to local visitors as opposed to out-of-country or far-away visitors. So most of our business comes from the Lower Mainland and up-country in British Columbia, a fair bit, but not a great deal, from Alberta, Ontario. Europeans, we're getting Europeans fairly regularly now.
Uh-huh.
The U.S. is coming back, but very, very slowly. So it's been a tough number of years. It's been very difficult. Even the market is open and has been now for, I guess, going on a year.
Right.
And but it's not the market it used to be. It doesn't have the little shops. And, it's a different type of market, and it isn't really what we would call a tourism draw. So
right.
it's good that it's open, but it hasn't been quite the help that we would have liked it to.
Right, right. So I was going to ask you about the crew that you have on the paddle wheeler.
We've been very fortunate with our crew. The basis of our crew, which right now today is Helga and myself and Will, who is the bartender, and he is also an engineer on board, and Louisa,
okay,
who is going to be an engineer. She's taking the courses, and she's going to be an engineer on board. Both of them will probably continue to take courses and get a little more into the marine part of things, and probably eventually become deck officers of some sort, at least up to the point of being able to be first mate on board.
Okay.
First mate is a very big step. It used to be that when I was getting my tickets, I didn't have to be a first mate. I had to get the sea time in, take the courses, and my first ticket was as a master or a captain. Nowadays you can't do that. You have to get your first mate's ticket, and that involves everything that we used to have to do to get the captain's ticket. Once you've got your first mate's certificate, it's relatively easy to get your captain's certificate, because all you have to do is get in another year or so of sea time, and then you can take your exams for master. So Will has been with us, I think, 13 years? 13 or 15
That's
years.
what you told me, 13, yeah.
Yeah, quite a long time. Louisa has been with us. We were just talking about that before we boarded. Neither one of us can remember exactly how long, but I'm guessing 8 years.
Oh, yeah.
And Louisa is very, very good at maintenance and building. She actually, right now, is also looking after the Samson. She,
right.
You probably know she works on. So she's very good. She has also become an excellent server for us on board, and she also does work as a DJ when we need her, and does a great job of that. So we're incredibly lucky with the staff we've got, and their loyalty to us. Elizabeth, who is on now, is recent to us, and she's turning out to be a very good employee.
Oh, good.
Helga, my wife, of course, has been in charge. She's a multitasker. She's in charge of all of the food preparation on board, all of our cruises, both on this boat and on the Beta Star. Judy works mostly on the Beta Star. She looks after the food and the service on the Beta Star.
Right.
But when we need her for numbers and whatnot, she's on this boat, and she's been with us for a fair number of years. Say 5 or 6. She actually used to own a restaurant in New Westminster.
Oh, wow.
And she finally sold that. So that's the crew that we've got on today. We actually have a staff. We have 2 people that work during the busy season in the office, and they're usually students that are in a work area for the summertime, and then we have another person in there that will be there full time, pretty much all the time, winter and summer, because we are open all year round. So altogether, during our regular busy season, we're up to a maximum of 14 people.
Okay.
We usually have we've got another 3 people that will do serving on board. and everybody that works for us has to take at least the preliminary courses for working on a boat, so they know about the firefighting, first aid, and rescue maneuvers and all this kind of thing. And they get the training and have to get a certificate for it, and then we have drills, and we have them regularly on board. So again, this year we've hired a couple of new people. We're just going to have a new fellow on that's going to maybe he is a DJ, and so we're going to see what he's like. And,
Oh yeah.
So there's always changes, especially when you're in a business that's seasonal, like we are.
Sure.
Nearly everybody that works for us also works somewhere else. In most cases, it's in a restaurant or now Elizabeth doesn't. She only works for us. Judy does work with seniors and looking after some of the older people. So it's not really stressful for us as far as employees are concerned, because we've been so fortunate, and when we do get them, we seem able to keep them, and that's pretty nice.
A few of them I've heard have mentioned that it's a real family atmosphere here.
Well, it is.
Is that something
That's
that
right,
you guys
yeah.
promote, and that you like to operate your business that way?
I don't know if it's so much that we like to. I think it's just the natural way we do things. We like our employees to feel that they're not just workers here, but they are a part of us, and we're concerned about their well-being, and they're concerned about our business, because that helps them pay the bills.
Yeah.
So that's the way we always do it, and I guess that's why they stay with us. But when you get good employees, you want to work to keep them. There's a fellow that is taking some courses today, as a matter of fact, that has been with us for quite a few years, and he's just completed his engineer's ticket.
Oh,
and his next work is for his first mates, and he's already got enough seat time with us to do that.
Oh, good.
In fact, it's Mark McKenzie. You might even know.
Of course,
you know Mark.
I've done interviews with him, actually.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
He's very involved with this and history.
Yeah.
In fact, that's what
cool.
he's on a course at UBC today that is either geology or history, because he's taking both the courses.
Right. Yeah.
So he's one of our longtime employees, and we're very happy to have him with us. And he's also like a shipwright. He does a lot of. He looks after our maintenance, and he looks after our mechanical stuff on here.
And do you find that a lot of your employees have become sort of interested in the history and the legacy of the river and paddleboat?
Very much so. All of them, pretty much. They might get tired of hearing it sometimes, because they're hearing the same narration, every day. The nice thing is, we've got 3 different people doing narration, so you don't always get the same thing. Mark does the most of it, so we know almost everything Mark knows about the river.
Right.
History is a big part of our cruise, because the history of this river, especially down in this area, is absolutely incredible, and doesn't get nearly the recognition, we don't think, as it should get. You guys work hard at it, we work hard at it, but it's you hear and see what happens in some areas of the U.S. and like the Mississippi. Not many people realize that at one time there was more steam-driven paddle wheelers on the Fraser River than there was on the Mississippi.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, that's a fact, and we don't say that very often, and we have to keep reminding ourselves. But anytime Archie Miller was on here for a particular group that we had, and every time he's on here doing narration, this comes into his talk, and then it clicks me. Gosh, we got to mention that more often. Because, I've seen the Mississippi River and got nothing on the Fraser. This is Other than it gets more people going there.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. And of course, one thing is it's a longer. It's a river that has destinations for boats more so than the Fraser does. The Fraser, you can only go so far with a passenger boat, and then you can't get by Hell's Gate. You know?
Right.
So history is a big thing. What has happened on the banks of the river is a really interesting thing. Some of it is progress. Some of it is sad because it's we've lost a lot of things on the side of the river. I don't know if you've ever seen the plans for the Fraser Mills area down there.
No.
It's huge, and I think there's something in our stairway that shows it. And it's something like a 20-year plan, but it's going to be enormous. It's going to be residential and industrial and commercial. And so it's going to be a very big thing. Big change from being a huge sawmill operation to what they're going to do.
Yeah, Bob, that ship in Charlie.
I don't know if you've been up here. If you look over there, you'll see pieces of the old bridge missing.
Oh yeah.
Can you see it from here? You can see the supports for it there.
Right.
And there's no top. Well, that's what they're doing. They're taking that down, putting it.
Oh yeah.
See down on the barge? That's a big chunk of the bridge that they've got there, and that's all going to go down to Anix, and they are the people that are in the scrap metal business. Grind it all up, put it on barges, take it to places that are going to make steel out of it, and then we buy a car that used to be a bridge.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's interesting. This is a big job. See all the equipment they got up.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it's going to take them to do that.
Call them on the radio.
That's a big part of the cost of the bridge is taking the old bridge down.
Sure.
It's like $2 million just to take it down.
Holy Dinah. So do you get to know all of the companies that are here along the river, like all the other businesses that?
Well, we know a lot of them. Pretty much any business that has anything to do with the actual river, we know them. Businesses that are in a building on the riverside where they're like offices, we don't know too much about that.
Oh, sure, yeah.
This is a huge business just over here to our left because this is the CNR
Oh, yeah.
switching yards. Another thing that a lot of people don't realize, there's something like 250 kilometers of track in there where they're put together the trains that are going to go to different locations. And if that was full of cars right now, there'd be about 600 rail cars in there.
Oh, wow.
But you can see there's a big train coming through there right now with the double. Those are probably, a lot of them are heading for Fraserport, and they'll be loaded on ships and taken to different areas. So that's a big industry right there.
Right.
But a lot of the industry is lost industry as opposed to industry that we knew.
Right. And can you tell me all about how you guys set up for a cruise? Like for on the day of do you do a couple of cruises a day, and how do you get set up?
Some days we do more than one. Our season now, by the end of September, is from October on for the winter is considered off season. Right up until the end of September is our main season. Sometimes we get into a situation where we've made a promise of a time for a cruise, and then we have to scramble and figure out, my gosh, how are we going to get ready? Because we just finished another cruise just before that. And sometimes they're not booked at the same time, so we don't turn business away. We'll do something to make it happen, and that's what we did for today.
Right.
We've got a half an hour from when we tie up, getting this cruise back, getting the people off, getting everything cleaned up, preparing. Mind you, they're preparing a lot of the food preparation right now because lunch is done now. So they'll have a lot of it ready by the time we get back. And you've seen the size of the galley down there. It's very, very small.
Yeah.
And incredible what the girls do in that. We feed up to 100 people. Full meal.
Oh my God. That
out
is
of that
incredible.
little galley. Yeah.
Wow.
And you know, we can go and buy these huge roasts, and that big by that big, and they're cooked right on there. And
Holy.
all of the meals you get here are prepared by us on the boat, so everything is always fresh. That's one of the things we have really got a reputation for, is our food quality and our service.
Right.
And that's really important. That's what brings people back. The group we had on last night, they've been here every year for 7 years, and it's their employee appreciation every year. And we had 80 some of them on last night, full dinners.
Wow.
So it's that's a very important part of our business, especially now that there's not as much in the way of tourism.
Right.
Getting the charter groups back and making sure that they're looked after and know then that they will want to come back. So yeah, there's a lot of work done in preparing for what's coming up next. But you know, we're usually here about an hour or an hour and a half before boarding time. Have everything ready. So it's not like we have to be here half a day ahead of time. And then when the boat's not out on its cruises, there's always maintenance. It's a steady thing, especially when you have a boat like that. It has a wooden superstructure. We have a steel hull, but we have a wooden superstructure. It's like looking after a house that's out in the weather all the time. You have to make sure that there's no leaks. And the difference in a house, this one moves and flexes and stresses. So it's a lot between that and. We do a lot of maintenance to keep from having to do big maintenance. It's preventive maintenance is a very important thing to do.
Okay.
There's nothing worse than being out on a cruise with a lot of people on board and something goes wrong. We've had it happen in our history probably 3 times. And to have to limp back to dock and then know that before we go out again we have to replace a motor or something, that's stressful. That's when stress comes into the business. But and it hasn't happened often now, over 24 years.
I was going to say, that's not so many.
No.
A few times in
right.
24 years.
That's right.
That's pretty good record.
Most of the experiences we've had with something going a bit awry would be early in it, because when we had this boat turned into a passenger boat, a lot of the, not the actual machinery, but a lot of the backup parts of the machinery had to come up to different standards than it was as a liveaboard. So we had to do a lot of different things. And when you do different things, you don't know exactly how it's going to work. We had an incident where we were up just out of Fort Langley and one engine quit. And, we didn't know exactly what was happening. Then all of a sudden another engine quit, and what we discovered was they weren't getting fuel, and then we had to find the fault. So we actually had to drop anchor and find out what went wrong. So we discovered that it all came down to a fuse that big. And when they put the system in, and then all the fuse does is for the small pump that pumps the fuel from the big main tank that holds 1,200 gallons of fuel into what we call a day tank, which is about a 60-gallon tank.
Right.
And the fuel goes from that day tank to the engines, but it's not pumped to it. It just goes by gravity. If that day tank does not have fuel in it, then the engines are not getting fuel.
Right.
And when they put in that system, they mounted the fuse on the side of the engine, which was a mistake because it got too hot there, and then finally the fuse went. So.
Oh no.
So what we did, dropped the anchor, and I was down the engine room. I found out what it was, that fuse, and replaced the fuse. That's fine. We got everything going.
That's good.
and then we had our mechanic change the location of the tube so that that wouldn't happen again. So that's the kind of thing that
Right.
can be a little stressful.
In general, would you say it's relaxing work? Do you like doing the actual steering of the boat and all that kind of thing?
I guess relaxing is a
Maybe
I mean,
not
it's
just the
very,
right word,
very
yeah.
interesting.
Right.
You know,